What's going on? We are back with another episode of Roosevelt Studies. I'm John. I serve on the pastoral team here at Roosevelt. And this morning, I got Barbara Campbell with me, who is one of our faithful covenant members at this church. She's amazing. She does a lot of great things. And today we're going to look at Luke 24. Really great passage. So Barbara, if you want to go ahead and just read it for us while we get into our study.
Yeah. This is the story of the disciples on the road to Emmaus. It happens on Resurrection Day. That very day, two of them were going to a village named Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem, and they were talking with each other about all these things that had happened. While they were talking and discussing together, Jesus himself drew near and went with them. But their eyes were kept from recognizing him. And he said to them, "What is this conversation that you are holding with each other as you walk?" And they stood still, looking sad. Then one of them, named Cleopas, answered him, "Are you the only visitor to Jerusalem who does not know the things that have happened there in these days?" And he said to them, "What things?" And they said to him, "Concerning Jesus of Nazareth, a man who was a prophet, mighty in deed and word before God and all the people, and how our chief priests and rulers delivered him up to be condemned to death and crucified. But we had hoped that he was the one to redeem Israel. Yes, and besides all this, it is now the 3rd day since these things happened. Moreover, some of the women of our company amazed us. They were at the tomb early in the morning, and when they did not find his body, they came back saying that they had even seen a vision of angels who said that he was alive. Some of those who were with us went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but him they did not see." And he said to them, "O foolish ones, and slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have spoken. Was it not necessary that the Christ should suffer these things and enter into his glory?" And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he interpreted to them in all the scriptures the things concerning himself. So they drew near to the village to which they were going. He acted as if he were going further, but they urged him strongly, saying, "Stay with us, for it is toward evening, and the day is now far spent." So he went in to stay with them. When he was at table with them, he took the bread and blessed and broke it and gave it to them. And their eyes were opened, and they recognized him. And he vanished from their sight. They said to each other, "Did not our hearts burn within us while he talked to us on the road, while he opened to us the scriptures?" And they rose that same hour and returned to Jerusalem. And they found the 11 and those who were there with them gathered together, saying, "The Lord has risen indeed and has appeared to Simon." Then they told what had happened on the road and how he was known to them in the breaking of the bread.
All right. So as you can see, that's a long passage that Barbara just read. Couple things. When we are trying to study the Bible, I think it's just important just to have some type of method or system to kind of help you do that. So what we do is we do the OIA: observation, interpretation, and application. So first thing I just want to point out is that observation is anytime you're reading the Bible, you have to understand the different genres that you have. So throughout the Bible, you have narrative, you have epistles, you have apocalyptic literature, you have poetry even. So there's a lot of different genres, and that's the first thing that you want to know how you're reading it. We all get mail, right? Hopefully all of us get mail, right? I know with technology that may have changed a little bit, but when you get mail, I go to the mailbox, I crack it open, take all the different papers that's in there, and what I like to do is I like to categorize what I have. So have some bills, right, that we all got to pay. That's a way that you're going to treat that a little bit differently. We all have maybe that letter that we get maybe around even Christmas time, right? People, pictures and stuff like that. You also may have a letter from your grandma or your grandpa, whatever the case may be, and we all have junk mail that we just stow away. But what I just did there, as you can see, is there's different categories, and I treat that differently just with mail. And I think it's the same thing when it comes to the Bible. We want to know what genre we have. So Luke 24 is a narrative passage, which is is a story, and we would interpret this a little bit differently than anything from an epistle or a different other genre. So that's one of the things that I would say first and foremost, that this is a narrative. This is a story.
Mm-hmm. Not junk mail?
Not junk mail.
Okay. One of the things in a narrative passage that you can look at is what is the mood of the passage. And in this case, on this story of the road to Emmaus, the mood and the emotion is one of the biggest things to notice. And you'll see that it starts with the disciples being very low, very sad, and then when they recognize Jesus, there's a complete change in their emotions. So it goes from sorrow to sadness, and from sadness to joy. It goes from confusion to clarity. It goes from slowness to high energy. There's just a big change in this passage in mood.
Yeah. Another observation here. I'm going to take the pen here. This is it's an interesting phrase I was struck by as you were reading it, Barbara. We have this, but their eyes were kept from recognizing him. I just want to circle that word, kept. Just some questions as you're studying the Bible. It's okay to mark it up, but their eyes were kept from recognizing him, recognizing Jesus. Why was that the case? Why were they kept? These are just questions to kind of think through as you're looking at it. You don't even have to answer the questions right away. It's just ways to be able to engage with the actual text.
Yeah, was their sorrow keeping them from recognizing him? Was their devastation keeping them from recognizing him? Or was this a spiritual thing? Was Jesus himself hiding himself in some way from them?
That's good.
So it's a good question to ask. One of the things that I like to do going through a narrative is just noticing the actions of the characters, and especially in this one, Jesus. Let's just notice his actions because they're really quite stunning. This is the risen Lord. He could have come in great splendor and drama, but here it says that he just came. He drew Jesus himself. I'll draw a little harder. Jesus himself drew near and went with them. Kind of a quiet coming along. He asked questions. He drew them out. He listened. I think that's a really important thing. Later, he asked, there's a big section in here of him just listening. A major part of the passage is of Jesus just listening. And then he teaches them. He interprets to them all of the scriptures. And I think if there's anything in history I would love to go back to, it's this moment in time. I would have loved to be there. To just hear Jesus interpret all of the scriptures and about himself.
Wow.
Must have been a very special experience.
Yeah.
And then the other thing he did, he waited to be invited. He acted as if he were going further, but they urged him. They invited him in to stay with him. And then he served them, which is unexpected. Right. He would have been the guest, but he served them. He took the bread and blessed it and broke it. So those are the observations of Jesus, coming in gently, asking questions, listening, waiting to be invited. And when he's invited, he serves and he reveals himself.
Man, that's good. That is amazing. So in terms of this passage, Barbara, in terms of application, what are some applications that you would see for this?
I would think that we could personalize this and say, in our sorrow, that Jesus draws along beside us and walks with us.
That's good.
I think we could also personalize it that when we invite him in to our sorrow or into the troubles of our lives, that he reveals himself.
That's good. And that's a big thing about Jesus actually revealing himself, because that's what we all need. Everyone needs Jesus to reveal himself in really practical ways that will be able to help us in our journey. So
I think there's one more application I'd just like to throw out, and that's when Jesus says, "Oh, foolish ones and slow of heart to believe." Are we foolish and slow of heart to believe all that's in the scripture? I think we have moments where suddenly we realize it's true, and we need to believe it.
We need to believe it.
Yeah.
Amen. Well, I think this was good. Hopefully this was encouraging to you all. Luke 24, amazing passage. I'm right along with Barbara when she says that if there was a moment in time where I can go back and actually hear Jesus, I want to be right with you.
Yeah.
I want to hear that. So, all right, well, that concludes our time in our Roosevelt studies dealing with Luke 24. We encourage you all to read this and study it and be encouraged that what you see in the text and engage with it in practical ways. So, all right, take care.